Hey everyone, it's Katie from Chords Records. In today's video, I'm going to look at my favorite top reissues from 2025. I decided not to rank them except do them in order of chronological original release, starting with the most recent, and that is the Civil War's Barton Hollow. This was originally released in 2011. It was released this year in 2025 as a deluxe edition, beautifully produced in this gatefold kind of reproduction of the original album, except for this deluxe edition written on here. Of course, this was the beautiful debut album by this folk Americana duo from the time 2011, John Paul White and Joy Williams, who eventually broke up sort of not long after. They only lasted a few years. They supported Adele, and at the time Adele said they were the greatest live band that she had ever seen. Their music is sublime. Do yourself a favor if you don't know them and find a video of them doing Poison and Wine. It's the most beautiful song. Their harmonies are just gorgeous, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful harmonic duo. Gorgeous instrumentation, beautiful ballady, lo-fi folk songs. Highly recommend this original album, but it was reissued as a deluxe in 2025 with a few extra bonus tracks on it. And it was released from Sensibility label. So well done, Sensibility. Right, the next one, the original came out in 2011, so we're working backwards from the originals. This one also, 2001, so Civil Wars was 2011. This one came out a decade earlier in 2001, and it was the posthumous release by Laura Nyro, Angel in the Dark. She had started recording this album when she was sick with ovarian cancer, which she ultimately died from. And the musicians came back into the studio 2 or 3 years later to finish the album. And this is the first time released on vinyl, and it came out on Record Store Day. First time officially released on vinyl. And kudos to Newland Records. This is an amazing label. I think they're out of London or out of the UK, who find sort of slightly obscure jazzy titles and reissue them. This reissue that came out, all their albums, all Newland albums, are this matte sort of gorgeous card. They use the reverse stock, so it's shiny inside, and it's just beautiful. It's simple. It's a single kind of card stock, but it's just a beautiful release. And they actually worked with a photographer when they created this album in 2001, who had several photos of Laura and found an original one that hadn't been released for this album cover. The actual reissue that came out this year, it was beautiful, as I said, beautifully released in polyline sleeve. And it includes some really wonderful liner notes from people involved at the time. And it was done in full cooperation with her estate. It's an absolute marvel of an album. It's mostly covers. And she was just an exquisite vocalist and piano player. And her interpretations and arrangements, almost gospel-y and funk infused. There was just no one like her, and I absolutely love her. I've done quite a kind of a deep look at her in a video over a year ago, and just absolutely love her. So that was my second reissue of the year. The third and fourth and fifth ones are all kind of clustered together, and it's from the punk scene in Seattle. They all kind of are getting their kind of reissue campaigns going and having their moment. These albums are impossibly hard to find in any kind of condition, let alone find them at all. And the first one that I want to show is the album by the Gits. As soon as we found out this was being reissued, you could not believe how quickly I pressed buy. Of course, the Gits were like a really fantastic grunge, or no, sort of punk band from Seattle. And this one was issued this one was their self-titled Frenching the Bully in 1992, so a decade earlier than Angel in the Dark. So we're kind of jumping decades here. So it's that kind of 89, 90, 91 era of Seattle where it was all the sort of punk was coming in, and then the grunge scene. This band, The Gits, funny fact, they were originally named after a Monty Python sketch, which I absolutely love. And the Americans wouldn't quite get Gits as a name. You know, You're a Git is just such a classic. It's a British thing and it's an Australian thing, but I think it was probably quite funny to Americans. But anyway, The Gits was fronted by a female vocalist called Mia Zapata. And unfortunately and tragically, this poor woman was killed in tragic circumstances. She was murdered on the street going home in Seattle late one night, and it took them years to find the murderer. Someone unknown to her, just a random, horrible attack, opportunistic attack. And her bandmates, you know, funded a whole investigation to try and solve the murder. And so she never was able to fulfill her full potential. And her voice is almost, when you start listening to it, it's very much, you kind of harken back to like a Patti Smith style sort of essence of punk. But it's kind of more than that. It's got some real almost, well, it's unique. It's got her own kind of vocalization. She's an amazing artist. And I will say the musicians are fantastic. From the moment the opening notes of this album start, you go, right, this is going to be a really strong album. So whether you like punk or not, you know it's going to be quality. But as it is, the album is fantastic. So they announced a reissue of this. So happy to have it on vinyl. I would never have been able to get an original. And so that's The Gits. And then moving sort of slightly backwards, Mother Love Bone also released a couple of reissues this year. Shine and this epic. It's kind of self-titled, very funny. It says the first time official vinyl release since 1990, fully remastered from the 25th anniversary. And if you do the math, it's actually the 35th anniversary. So it's like, geez, you've got one job, guys. But anyway, really amazing. Again, jumped on the site as soon as I heard these were being released, and got both of them limited edition colored vinyl. We didn't get there were a couple of real collector versions of this. They didn't just release one. We just got the basic kind of European, made in Netherlands ones. We just wanted them on vinyl, and I'm very happy to have both of them. Know the albums really well and have streamed them enough over my years, but to have them on vinyl in my collection, in my small but valuable punk collection. So these were from sort of 1998, 99, 2001, kind of around that kind of emerging punk and then grunge scene in Seattle. Right, the next one is 1998. And this is probably my other favorite one of the year. Oh gosh, there's so many because I can see some coming up. So we're slowly working back. And this was released on Record Store Day. It was the Spy Boy live album from Emmylou Harris. First time released on vinyl. And of course, this was the touring band and the touring live show that emerged out of the mid-80s Wrecking Ball, phenomenal career-defining album of Emmylou Harris. So this was the album where she completely changed direction after her years and years of Americana and country, and she brought Daniel Lanois in and produced this extraordinary atmospheric Wrecking Ball. And then she thought, how am I going to tour this? And he joined her on stage for a few of the early gigs as guitarist. and then went, I can't do it anymore, but I'm going to recommend Buddy Miller join you. They obviously longtime friends, and Buddy Miller joined the band as the guitarist and ended up producing this beautifully recorded album, Spy Boy. And it is just a fantastic live album. It's very lo-fi. It's songs from Wrecking Ball, songs from her career. It's got bonus tracks on it as well, which are a real treat. And the musicians are all super tight. So Buddy Miller, Daniel Johnson, and is on vocals, bass guitar, etc., etc. And then the extraordinary drummer of Brady Blade, who's been with a lot of different artists. Fantastic live album. I cannot speak highly enough about this album. If you missed out on Record Store Day, still really easy to get, and it is, I think, a must for every kind of serious vinyl collection. For something completely different, I'm going to share with you probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, reissue of the year. For the 35th anniversary, Tracy Chapman's self-titled debut 35 years ago. When it was announced that this album was getting a reissue, the amount of applause that you could hear all over the vinyl internet community was deafening. It beautifully produced, this album. I mean, everyone knows, I don't need to kind of share, but just to trigger your brain. Talking about a revolution, Fast Car, Behind the Wall, Baby Can I Hold You, like just, oh, so many great songs on it. The album was just produced beautifully. It was mastered beautifully. And to finally get a reissue, there was never a reissue campaign for this, was fantastic. It was released on 2 or 3 different vinyl colors, and it sounds wonderful. And they were going up in price. The originals were going up in price. I have a Amiga Germany one original, which sounds incredible and is one of the originals to get if you're looking for it. But it was so beautiful, and I've had it for quite some time. But this one matches it. So very happy. So that was originally released in 1988. Right, moving into 1975, going backwards in time, the iconic Patti Smith Horses album with that beautiful Robert Mapplethorpe portrait on the front cover. What an absolute treat to get this reissued, remastered, and it is delivered in every way, shape, or form. I've got several copies of this album. I'm a absolute massive Robert Mapplethorpe photography fan. I'm currently looking at a portrait of Patti Smith, an original Polaroid by Robert Mapplethorpe. I love the pair that much. And I have that hanging on my wall. And from around about the same era as this, maybe a little bit earlier. And this is the 50th anniversary edition, put out by Arista. And not, I don't need to say too much about this. This is a beautiful reissue of this album. The next one was a punt. I absolutely love Dylan from Noble Records and trust his taste in music. And I really like what he's doing with his reissues. And when I heard that he had teamed up with, was pressed at QRP and produced this prog classic by Jezda Urfa, commonly known as Boris, I just thought, I'm going to have to get that. I don't know much about it, but he'd gone on and on about it so much, and I hadn't streamed it. And just the fact that I knew that it was going to be pressed really, really well, AAA, all analog, and I absolutely do not regret it. My God, this album, if you don't know it, it was apparently it's a prog classic, a prog underground classic. So it's one of the hardest prog albums to get in the US. The guys from Jezda Urfa, the band, recorded it originally as a demo. And so only like 300 copies were ever available, and still are available, of the original recording. And it became this underground classic. And of prog rock. And when you listen to it, you cannot believe they're even demos. The musicianship on this is outstanding. It's got all the hallmarks of prog music, from driving drum beats, like really driving drum beats, to Celtic banjo playing and beautiful flutes, all over the place, of progressive rock, really. And it's just a masterpiece. When you hear it, even if you don't know much about prog rock, like everyone watching this video will, but if you stumble on this video and you don't know much about prog rock, stream this. This will introduce you to the idea of what it is. Like, don't be scared. It's interesting, it's lyrical, it's rhythmic, it's bluesy, it's movement on wax. Highly recommend this reissue by Noble Records, Boris, by the band Yes de Urfa. Originally came out in 1975. Right, the next one, 1973 reissue. Of course, everyone heard about this at the time, and what a classic. Buckingham Nicks, self-titled album. It was announced that Rhino was going to be doing the Rhino, beautiful Rhino High Fidelity series with their Obi strip and polyline sleeves and all the bits and pieces. Announced that they would be doing this this beautiful first time reissue, impossibly, like really hard to get in the wild, because they've never reissued it officially. And this was the album that the two of them did before they joined Fleetwood Mac. And it's a good album. It's not an absolutely outstanding album by any stretch, but it's so wonderful to hear the two of them together away from Fleetwood Mac and hearing what the origins were of this incredible duo of like artists. And I bought the kind of limited edition numbered one that came, and I also bought the single as well, just as I absolutely adore Fleetwood Mac. I've seen them several times in concert, seen the full band when Chrissy was still alive. Absolutely love them. And I just had to have it. I have 2 original copies of Buckingham Nicks as well, including an Australian original. So for me, it was just a must-have, and you either like it or not, but that was one of the top reissues for me of the year. All right, the next one, this set the vinyl community ablaze with excitement, and in the end, I decided, you know what, I'm going to have to go with it and buy it. And that was, this honestly, if I'm being really candid with you, this was a purchase based on FOMO. I am a Pink Floyd kind of light fan. I'm not a huge kind of all in on Pink Floyd, but so many people were excited about the announcement of this being released on reissued on vinyl. Of course, it's from the 1972 concert film that was kind of released subsequently on VHS and Laserdisc, and being released and remastered for vinyl, and it also accompanied a cinematic short-term release on film. Was really interesting. I like these kind of art projects, and I like the story about them going to Pompeii and filming in the kind of the Colosseum of it, I guess. And I watched a lot of reviews of this album before I actually bought the reissue. And inside it comes with a poster of the actual event. And again, I did not regret purchasing this. Of course, the vinyl community are mostly always right. And it is just such a treat of an album. And I've returned to it quite a few times through the year, which is always a good sign of a purchase. So that was my one of my top reissues of the year. Right, coming down to the last few. This one was put out by Ted Lucas, and it wasn't widely talked about, but I I won't take it out of its plastic because it's kind of well sealed in there. It was put out by Third Man Records, and this is the kind of cult, I guess you could call it a cult folk album from 1972 by Ted Lucas. I didn't know anything about Ted Lucas, but thankfully the liner notes in here, which are extensive, which I'll just show you. There's an amazing, amazing liner note pamphlet in there, or flyer. Really, really well produced by Third Man Records, as always by Third Man Records. Anything they do is stunning, on heavyweight vinyl and beautifully produced jacket. And Ted Lucas, this was an album that kind of really never took off. It was from 1972, self-titled. He'd been in a few bands from Detroit, and from what I can gather, things just never really worked for him. And he was, I think the overriding message around the man is that he was his own worst enemy, and he ended up sort of slowly drifting off into oblivion, literally, and eventually dying. And I bought this because of a single Instagram post by one of the guys who was involved in putting this out from Third Man Records. And you could tell it was an authentic, genuine love of this man's music. And the sale, the promo worked, and I bought it, and it is just so beautiful. And so if you don't know it, stream it. It's really worth getting hold of. I collect early folk albums. I absolutely love folk. It's my collection's growing and growing. I've got quite a large female folk collection from the 60s, which are a little bit more obscure, and one day I'll do a video on that. But this for me was just a really beautiful timestamp from around about this time, although a lot of the songs on this album were recorded a lot earlier. And there's a really fun story about the cover of this album, which was originally intended for Jimi Hendrix by the artist before Jimi Hendrix died. And the artist always regretted selling it to Ted Lucas. He was pressured into it. And then subsequently, the band Journey, bought the artwork and featured it on several albums, I think was the story. Anyway, Ted Lucas, self-titled album from 1972, amazing reissue from Third Man Records. Right, and then the final two reissues, and then I'm just going to talk about 2 or 3 compilations which were just brilliant for the year. But the final two I'm going to batch together, and they were from MoFi. They were MoFi One Steps in their continuing series of Joni Mitchell. This was, I should start in order of chronological. This was Hygieia, one of Joni Mitchell's greatest albums, if not her greatest album. Yes, my favourite album of Joni Mitchell, Hygieia. She's a little bit more sophisticated, very jazzy, typical one-step treatment. I'm not going to take it out because the only complaint I have about this album, mastering, everything is fantastic, is the packaging, wasted packaging inside, like sleeves that don't get used, and it crams in there. You can't get them back in, and it wasn't a mistake. It happens with all of them. I hate it. But anyway, the rest of the packaging is beautiful and the music is stunning. So that's Joni Mitchell's Hygieia in 1976, and then Joni Mitchell's Blue from 1971. Obviously the iconic, probably one of the greatest albums of all time. And I've got a beautiful test pressing of Blue, never released, from a reissue that was planned by Classic Records, pressed at RTI. I purchased it at an auction, and it is actually quite beautiful. Love this album and love this One Step reissue, both from this year. Right, I just want to talk briefly about a few compilations that I purchased this year. And the first one is this Heart of Gold compilation, The Songs of Neil Young. Thus, my Neil Young t-shirt from my live in Hollywood solo gig I saw about 15 years ago. T-shirt. This album, The Songs of Neil Young, it's a compilation of other artists singing Neil Young songs. It was in support of the Bridge School, which is a school which he and his ex-wife are very, very involved in supporting. And the reason I'm sharing this compilation is the artists on here. So, of course, Neil Young songs are so beautiful and hit and miss sometimes when people reinterpret them. But I can say, my hand on my heart, that nearly every song on here is a beautiful interpretation of the respective song. You have people like Brandi Carlile doing Philadelphia, Fiona Apple doing Heart of Gold, which is probably the standout track on the album. You have Eddie Vedder doing Needle and the Damage Done, and it goes on and on. Courtney Barnett. This is a really interesting group of artists singing Neil Young. And then some old school like Rodney Crowell doing Mr. Soul. Like, it's all over the place. The Doobie Brothers, Lumineers. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. All contributing music to this album. Really recommend getting it. It's a fantastic listen. Sometimes compilations are much maligned, but I absolutely love them. And this one does not let me down. The next one is, I think I might have talked about this on my channel before. The Lost Recordings label put out some fantastic music, and I don't get all of them. The European label that do high-end kind of heavyweight vinyl of Lost Recordings from, sort of that concert scene when the blues and jazz artists would come over to Europe in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And they're basically reissuing them on vinyl. I've got a few of them, not all of them. They're usually limited to 4,000 copies, often numbered. This one was the original American Folk Blues Festival, and it was, this is live in Paris 1962 and Bremen 1963. And you can see the blues artists, if I just hold up to the camera there, that feature on this album. And it was that classic, this kind of blues festival that went round. It was when the blues artists were first coming over to Europe and realizing there was a real market for them, for the music and for touring. And some of the recordings on here are just outstanding, clean, beautiful to hear them on clean vinyl. I absolutely love this compilation, and this was released this year. Right, this one was a fun one. This is not for everyone. This was a best of, really, more a compilation best of from Rilo Kiley, who I absolutely love. And the reason I bought this was for one song and one song alone, Does He Love You, which is a monumental epic of a song about an affair. Honestly, it's just so beautiful. And this is more or less a best of that they've released this year after 20 years in the business. And I purchased it for that song. It's a really fun listen. Released on Saddle Creek. The only downside about this album is the sound quality wasn't great, but the music is so good, and that final song, Does He Love You, is such an epic masterpiece that I know so intimately. I had to have it on vinyl, and so I purchased that. Right, the final one is just a bit of a fun one, again from Record Store Day. As most of you would know, every year on Record Store Day, Jazz Dispensary, and also on Black Friday Record Store Day, Jazz Dispensary put out a compilation vinyl. I've bought a handful of them over the years, and sometimes I always check out who the artists are, whether I'm going to get them, because you're either all in and you have to buy everything, and I didn't want to commit, so I just pick and choose. And this one is such a great album called Nightlights, and it's literally the album you put on for a cocktail party or a dinner party. It is just that kind of jazz music. And the artists are, I'll just read you some of them. Oh, actually, I'll read you the blurb. If Saturday night is the loneliest night of the week, Moodsville is your destination. Escape the noise of the city and take in Nightlights, a new compilation from Jazz Dispensary, collecting mellow, forlorn, and hauntingly beautiful tunes from Yusuf Lateef, Coleman Hawkins, Kenny Burrell, Gene Ammons, and more. And it's just that classic kind of lo-fi, gorgeous, jazzy night lights type album. Really, really fun compilation. So it's a really good one if you just want to get something to put on. All right. So that is my top absolute reissues of 2025. Pop in the comments below the ones that you've loved. And if you like this, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.